Okay, chapter 5, as I was telling the class, chapter 5 is your hardest chapter. So if you feel like you're drowning, you are. It's just extremely hard. I will walk you through it as best I can, and just know that after we get through this in Unit 3, life is much easier. So chapter 6 is even easier than this one. Alright, so we're going to name a bunch of ranges because we're going to come back and use them. Now, before, when we did a VLOOKUP, we actually looked up something here and went over however many columns we wanted, because we knew we always wanted to come to column 3 or column 5. Okay, well, now we're going to learn about index and matching, where we're actually going to look here and, based on some information, go to that particular column. So we're going to name a bunch of these things. So we're going to name B5 through E8. We're going to name it lesson underscore pricing. And be sure you hit the enter key or it doesn't stay. And then we're going to do H4 through J5. Entry fees, enter. And then trans fees. And uniform fees. Alright, then if you just want to double check that, you come in here and we can go to formulas, name manager, and there are our names. Now if you misspelled it later, you're going to find out that you have a name error when we go to use the formulas. So you'd want to come back here, go to the name manager, and then edit and change the name. Okay, and then when you do that, just click OK. If you have to change the locations, you have to push the check mark afterwards. All right. So now we're going to go to student data, and we're going to fill in this price per hour. All right. So again, if we go back and look, our lesson pricing is by lesson type, and then it's different. If it's a half hour, it's this much. If it's an hour, hour and a half versus 2 hours. Okay, so we're going to do an index and match. So equal index, open parentheses, and the array. So this is very similar to our lookup, but we don't have our lookup value first. We have our array. The table that we're looking at is lesson pricing. Okay, so comma, and then we want to know what row we want to go on. And remember, the table had the rows were the skill level, so we're going to actually match on this in our lesson pricing. Okay, and then our match type, if you notice, if it's 1, it's less than, 0 is exact, and a -1 is greater than. I think I told somebody in class I had that backwards, so just make sure you know that. So we're going to go with an exact match. I want the skill level matched exactly. Okay, so close parenthesis, and then comma. Now I'm on my column number, and it just tells us to use column number 2. Okay, because all of them, we're looking at the hour, the cost per hour, so we don't care about what else is up there. All right, so what did that do? Okay, so this is not lesson pricing, sorry guys. The array that we're going to go look up is actually just this little guy right here. Okay, and then we're going to absolute value that. And hit enter. Nope. What am I doing? Not thinking this morning, that's for sure. Alright, I'm back. I got him backwards. Okay, so the array is lesson pricing. And then what we're looking up is the value, this in the column, or the row, sorry. So we're basically, we're looking in this area, and we're going to go down 1, 2, 3, okay, because that's how many this is, down 3, and then we're just going to go over to column 2 and grab the price out of there. So, oops, not that one. Go back to student data, and I'm looking in my lesson pricing, that white area. I'm going to match, figure out what row to come down. Okay, so I'm going to look in this area and figure out how many rows to come down based on how many rows I went down over here to match this skill level to this table, and then just grab me column 2. Okay, so 1, if you see that it says to put an error checking in, you always want to make sure your formula is right here. Because like a while ago when I had it wrong, if I'd put an if error on there, everything would be messed up. It'd be all blanks probably, but it's easier to get it right, get your formula right, and then come back in. So right after the equal sign, we're going to put an if error. So I check if anything's wrong with this, come over to the end, comma, and then we're going to leave it double blank, or double quote, double quote. Okay, and then we can copy that down, and the blank one here should be blank. Okay. All right, now we're going to name this whole table. So I'm going to grab this section. Okay, from A3 all the way to I34, and we're going to name this student underscore data. Okay, remember to hit enter or you don't, it doesn't take. Alright, now we're going to go to the lesson data, and we're going to do a VLOOKUP this time. So I'm going to look up this person's skill level, because we're just going to find their name, and the skill level is always in this column, which is, we're going to look up their ID, because that's what's in the left-hand column of my table. Okay, and then we'll go over, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so we're going to go across to column 8 to get their skill level. Alright, so VLOOKUP, the lookup value is their student ID. Their table is student data, comma, and then column number, I just said it was 8, and then we also want an exact match. Okay, and then close parenthesis. Okay, so if we were to go over and look at student 18, she is an expert. Okay, all right, and so my VLOOKUP works. So this time we're going to create an if statement. All right, so I want you to select this without the equal sign, Control C or Command C if you're on a Mac. Okay, and then we're going to put an if statement in here. If this, And it tells us if the student does not have a skill. So I'm going to say if this is not equal to blank. Okay, so that's my test. This is one side and that's the other side. I'm going to say comma now. Now you notice it goes to true. What I do if this is true? What I do if there's not a blank? Well, I'm going to do it again. So Control V or Command V, drop in that formula, and then comma. Now what do I do if it's false? Well, if it's false, meaning it's blank, then I'm going to just leave it blank. Double quote, double quote. And hit enter and copy that down. And now we've got a couple of blanks, right? Which if we went back to our student data, we had 2 blanks, right? Anastasia and Hyatt. So we have Hyatt and Hyatt. Okay, so Anastasia is not listed here. All right, so I'll throw that up there one more time. You can pause the video and look at it if you need to. All right, now we're going to figure out the cost of the item or the lesson. Okay, so again, going back to our data tables, if they're an expert and they have an hour and a half lesson, it's $45. If it's a 2-hour lesson, it's $50. All right, so if we go to Keenan, has a half-hour lesson as an expert. Okay, so what we should be getting back is $35. Okay, so we don't have a solid column because we actually have two things that are changing. We have their lesson length and their skill level. So that's why we have to use an index and match. So I'm going to figure out how far down to go based on their skill, and then I'm going to go across depending on how long it is and grab whatever is in there. Okay, so now we're going to do an index, and we're going to look at the lesson data or lesson pricing. Okay, and then we don't know what row to go down, so we have to match on their skill level. And here we're going to go jump and look and grab that. So I'm going to go over to my data tables, grab this, and before you leave, absolute value that, and hit the comma. Okay, now we want to do an exact match, and you can close that function. So I'm closing my match. All right, so now I'm going to hit the comma. Now I need to know how many columns to come across. Again, I don't know because it changes. Okay, so I'm going to jump back to my lesson data, take that off, and type in match. I'm going to look up their length. I'm going to take that off too. Okay, and we're going to look at their length across the top. And absolute value that, comma, 0, close, close. All right. Okay, so if I copy this one down, notice I have an NA on my blank ones, and we want to fix that. Okay, so again, this time I'm going to do an if error. So you come back up here, right after your equal, if error, open parentheses. So if anything goes wrong here, come over to the end, and we're going to do a default of 50. Okay, so that's just what the lesson is saying. If they don't have a skill level, the student is charged $50 for the lesson. Okay, so I'm going to click on that, copy it down, and notice my blanks went to 50, and I don't have any more NAs. Okay, again, pause the video if you need to look at this. All right, we're going to go to report, And now we're going to fill out this is going to change based on this student ID, all this information. Okay, so we're going to go do a VLOOKUP, go find their teacher name based on the student ID. VLOOKUP, well, let's figure out where the teacher is first. So if I go over to my student data, I look it up by ID, and then my teacher's in what column? There's 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we're going to look up in 4. So equal VLOOKUP. We're going to look up this ID. Your lookup value is always on the table or the worksheet you're on. And again, one way to figure that what it might be, if you can't figure out where it is on the worksheet, is to go look at the table, and whatever's in the left-hand column, that's the lookup value. And then this is student data. And I said it was column 4, right? And we want an exact match on that as well. Okay, it's just to show you, if I change this to, let's go to 8. If I change this to 8, oh man, are you serious? It's Chuck also. Alright, let's grab Jenny. How about 60? Okay, so if I change this to 60, it changes that, and the average fee, all this would actually change. Okay. Alright, so now we're going to, we need to put an if error on here. So if there isn't a student ID, so if I type in a wrong number right now, notice I get an NA here, but I still get information here. So we want to change that. Okay, we want to make it where you don't get those NAs. So we're going to drop in an if error. Again, if anything happens in this, comma, we're going to put in double quote, double quote. All right, now we're going to, we're step 8, looking in B5, we're going to go look up this student's skill level. So before we get started, where's the skill level? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so we want to look in column 8. So equal VLOOKUP, the value, student data, comma 8, comma false. Okay, so there's the lookup value for that, or the formula for that one. And again, we're going to drop in an if error. If anything goes wrong with that, we're going to say double quote, double quote. So you leave it blank. All right, and then we're going to come down here and we're going to do an if-else function. Okay, so basically I'm going to put in several scenarios, several logic tests, and based on the logic test, it does something if it's true. Okay, so the first one is if the total lessons in B6, okay, so B6 is greater than or is less than 5, we're going to say 0 earned. Okay, so I want it to literally say 0 earned, so I'm going to put that in quotes. All right, and then the next test is B6 is less than 10. It's 1 earned. All right, and then the last one is B6 is greater than or equal to 10. All right, and then you got a scroll bar, so you got to scroll down to the true side of this one, and it's going to be 2 earned. Okay. All right, so if I just were to manually come in here and put in 11, I get 2. If I did 6, I get 1. So my formula works. Okay. Come back down here and let you look at it. Alright, that's where I stopped in class, so I'm going to stop here and make 2 different videos.